Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our September Litmus Partner Office Hours. Appreciate you all joining us. Let's see. Got some folks who are still coming in, and once they, I'm just going to give folks another minute to log on, and then we will get started. Appreciate your patience. And if you'll have to forgive me if you hear my voice crack. I am fighting a cold, and there may be a moment where I am unintelligible. Well, actually, that happens a lot. There are many moments that way. So just let me know if I need to repeat myself. And I will cut that out of the recording. Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I want to thank everybody for joining us today for the latest edition of our Partner Office Hours. I'm your host, Ken Clements, and I'm a member of the partner team here at Litmus. If you have any issues at all with this Teams call, please message me in the chat. You can also email me at ken.clements@litmus.io, and I'll do what I can to take care of that technical issue for you. Our main presenter today is Hossein Gilamurad. Sorry, Hossein. He's been a member of our sales engineering team for 3 years now. And like myself, we're based in the Seattle, Washington area. And another member of our sales engineering team here is as well, Dylan McClure. Dylan's been with us for almost a year now, and he's based in Detroit, in the Detroit area. On today's call, we're going to kick things off with a discussion about how you can automate Litmus, the Litmus Edge and Litmus platform using our SDK. There's a lot of pretty cool ways that you can use this, so I think it'll be really informative for folks here on the call. But first, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to ask for everyone to hold your questions until after the short presentation that Hossein has put together. That's so we can get through all of the content. And then we're going to open things wide up for everyone to ask all of your questions. And you can ask those verbally here on the call. If you don't want to forget your question, feel free to put that into the chat window at any time. And we'll get to questions, whether you put them in chat or whether you ask those verbally. So with that, Hossein, let's go ahead and share with folks how the Litmus SDK can help them out.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you could just give me one of these to let me know that you all can see it. Yep. Okay. All right. So I'll go through some items prior to getting into. Hey, Neil, was there an issue? Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm guessing you wanted to hit the thumbs up.
No, it was a thumbs up. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, no worries. That's happened to me. That's how I knew. All right. So basically, I'm going to go through some housekeeping items, what the SDK is, how we use it, provide you with some resources. And once I've done that, I have some hands-on demonstration because I know this is a technical crew and you guys will like to get your hands dirty with this and get it using basically. So right here, I have a couple slides, if you will, right, that I'm going to go through right here. And I'm happy to share these with you if they're going to be of value to you after as well. So the SDK, prior to having the SDK, we had the API portal. I'll pull that up in a second. I wanted you all to see what it looks like in case you haven't yet. But very similar to the API portal, this is another tool in your toolbox that you can utilize to be able to control the Litmus Edge. Because remember, every click of the button is an API call, and in the background now, we have those bundled within our SDK. The goal really is to create a single programmatic interface to Litmus Edge in an easy to understand basically Python method, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're gonna go through some basic Python and then just basically go through the demonstration. So I mentioned the API. You can see that we have basically all the calls based off of our versioning, right? So we are releasing or may have already released actually to customers' hands, and you have the ability to be able to see this as well right here. So you can actually go through this, get all the information using the API calls, or control the Litmus Edge using the API calls. So that's what we're going to do today. The prerequisites, I'm doing mine on a Windows environment, but I have tried it on a Linux environment as well. It works just as well. You will require 3.12 Python or later, and you will have to have a basic understanding of Python to be able to do this. And as I go through this will all come together a little bit more, and it will make more sense. I put together the guide for the installation very quickly here. This is a high level. As I mentioned, if somebody wants to go back in the recording or look at these slides later, I thought this would be beneficial. So essentially, to go over these very quickly, what we have is a wheel file, which is common with Python, right? So we actually have that in two different places in our portal.litmus.io, which you probably previously knew it as from central.litmus.io. Central will now reroute you to portal anyway. So I'll pull that up in a second, or within our GitHub repo. So I'll show you where both of those sit in our GitHub. We actually have that right here. So you could do the wget command from your Linux if you're using that environment to actually take this, right? And we can actually just copy the link address. Or if you wanted to, you can actually just directly download it. That's probably an easier method if you are doing this on a Windows as well, where you can actually just go ahead and download the wheel file right here. So this is actually the portal.litmus.io, by the way. I will pause a second here to show you. So under accelerators, if you wanted to find it yourself, you could just search up SDK, and that will just show up right here. So that will be under downloads with a little bit of information under overview and about. There is also the link to the documentation, which I'll go through in a second as well. So once you've done that, you have your wheel file. You will create a virtual environment in your Python, basically. So using this command, you will have to activate that Python virtual environment, and you will have to do this every time you actually close and open a window, restart, that sort of stuff. So keep that in mind. And then we will be able to do at this point, the pip installation. So you can see in a very quick 4-step process, at this point, you have it installed. You can check to see if this is installed right here, right? So the return will be something like this. Obviously, your directory will be different. And then once you've done that, you actually have the ability to create a .env file, which I'll show you what that looks like. And that env file will hold the credentials to access your Litmus Edge, so you can actually start developing. So you're basically in a few steps, you're ready to go. And then I'll maybe quickly show you the documentation that we have here as well, and we'll get into the agenda for the presentation and the presentation itself, the demonstration rather. So in our documentation, we have a number of things that you can actually use to get familiarized with this, right? So this is in our local docs where you have, I'm sure you've actually accessed docs.litmus.io /SDK, right? So over here, what we have is the overview where we'll go through some of the requirements that we went through today, like having Python 3.12, the version of Litmus Edge needs to be 3.16 or above. And then basically the installation of the SDK here as well. So I'll walk you through how you can install on Windows, and yeah, you'll be able to get the files here. The configuration, which I'll go through in a second as well. Like I mentioned, these are how you would actually configure your .env file. That would also be here. And then, yeah, so just basically you'll get the ability to see all the components of Litmus Edge or the SDK, Litmus Edge SDK, that you will have the ability to use. The getting started, we'll get into further, basically the installation, and then the language, the plan language that we have. So over here, you can see all the components of Litmus Edge are actually currently covered, right? So we have analytics, device hub, digital twins. So you can see all of them here. We are going to be focusing on a few of them just for the sake of the discussion today, but if you wanted to get familiarized with the other ones, please do so. Another question that you may get asked is this going to be able to work in an air-gapped environment? And the answer is absolutely yes. So there is going to be some of that in here as well. So you can actually read through that as well if you had an environment where it was air-gapped. All right, and then one last thing I'll go through as well is the examples. So these, I didn't really pull from these examples specifically for the call today because I figured you could actually do these on your own. There might be some overlap, obviously, but really the intent would be for you guys to go through this and see if there's any examples that maybe resonate with you. The plan is to actually build on this as the community uses it more and more. So please do come to us with use cases that you see valuable to you and the customers, and we're happy to take those and essentially push those into our documentation as well. Maybe I'll pause for a quick second to make sure I covered a lot to see if there's any questions before we get into the demonstration. Okay, so sounds like there's no questions. So the agenda today for the demonstration, we're going to get the Litmus, so to start with, right, just to do a quick check. We're going to look at the versions of Device Hub and Digital Twins. We're going to create an S7 device. We're going to update that device's ports. Then we're going to create 10 simulators, update the metadata, and then we're going to update the metadata according to the device name. We're going to delete devices based off the device name. Then we're going to delete the devices based off of the metadata. We're going to look at our Litmus Edge resources. We're going to go ahead and create and delete a container. Create, find, and delete a container, essentially. So that those are two steps. And then we're going to basically deploy a template for compliance, basically, reasons. So, and in my Litmus Edge, I basically have created the API credentials right here. So you can actually see we're using OAuth 2, which I mentioned earlier. We actually have a .env file that I'll show you right here what that looks like. And obviously, in my case, we are utilizing a this is behind a firewall, so I have no issues showing this, right? But if you are basically doing this with a customer, please ensure that you're actually keeping the client ID and the client secret safe somewhere, right? So you're not actually showing that because the full control of the message will actually be available there. And then you can see that we actually have the ability to use Edge Manager as well. So the way we would do that, we actually would create the Edge Manager via a tunnel, and we'll be able to control the Litmus Edge as well. So this is a blank Litmus Edge. You can see there's no devices. There is, no analytics, no application, no integration. So we're going to go through those, and we're going to basically deploy a number of different items. So no images, no containers, nothing basically. So as I mentioned, I have some CAN examples that I have put together. I'll go through them one by one. And then as there's questions, please put them in the chat, or we can address them at the end of the call. So I have a Python file in my directory called office hours. I'm going to be using that for the sake of simplicity and the sake of time. But essentially what we have here in this case is a series of code that we're going to go through. For every code that we go through, we're going to do this, right, as you would with a Python. But we're actually, from the Litmus SDK, we're importing the device hub component and the digital twins modules, right? And we're going to go ahead and check those versions. So you're actually putting that into a variable right here. We have device hub.version, and then we're going to put that version into, I believe this expects a dictionary. There you go, which is why we're actually doing this. If this fails for whatever reason, we'll actually get a message back, right? So we actually have this print. And you can see that we're doing something very similar on the digital twin side as well. So very similarly, we'll be actually looking at the version. We'll be pushing back that version into a dictionary. We'll push it into a message, and if that fails, we'll actually get a message back as well. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. If everything is going successful, there we go. This is a quick check to see that our services are running. We have connectivity to our Litmus Edge, and we can actually read the information back as well. And everything is working well here. So I'm going to go ahead, based off of this, I have some other code that we're going to run in here. In this case, as I mentioned, we're going to go through and we are going to run this and create an S7 device for me. So what we have here, again, we're actually importing the modules that we're going to be using. Under device hub, we're going to import devices, drivers, and driver templates, right? So within that, we are going to go ahead and grab this. So I want to put this foundational knowledge in here in case, because I know it will come up again. So just so you know, so we have the ability to actually browse through all of our devices right here. You can see that we have all the devices that we would have in our list available right here. So this would be very similar to actually clicking the add button here and then going through all of our 280 devices right here. So if I were to pick any of these, you'll see that I will have the same list on my SDK side, just to kind of give you an overview of what that would look like on the SDK side, right? I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now. We don't need that, obviously, but we will use it in a second again. And then we are going to define a variable called properties because we're going to need it down here, right? So we're actually going to fill out the properties. Again, this will be very similar to actually adding the S7, and it will be similar to actually putting the slot number, network ports, and network address. One noteworthy item is that the slot number is actually going to be, it realizes that this needs to be assigned integer. So if you put something like a -1, your code will not run as well. And then under my devices, you'll have the ability, my device variable that we've defined, you'll be able to now basically create all the components of that device that we were talking about, right? So we have, we're giving it the name device_2. We're giving it a description in this case, adding some metadata, adding, basically the driver variable that we have, and then properties as well. And then lastly, we'll actually create that device. So I'm going to go ahead and run this code, and then go onto the Litmus Edge side to actually see what that looks like. So you can see immediately that device was started, created, started, but it was stopped because there's nothing that we can actually connect to at this address. But we're going to have some simulators where we have the ability to do that. All right. And I'm going to move on to the next step. So the next thing that we're going to do in this case is update the device port. I'm just going to copy my code, and we can go through it quickly as well. So again, just like before, what we're going to have here is the module importing, right? Then we have a helper function to fetch the device name right here, right? And then we're going to iterate through to find a matching name. And then if the device name does not match, we're going to have basically just print. This screen is going to print that there's no device like what you're asking. And then we're going to look up the device name right here again in the list that we have. And lastly, we're going to update the port. So if you see the port is currently 999, I'm just going to go ahead and save my code right here, and I'm going to run that Python script again. And as you should be able to see this on this end, the Python will actually go back and update this to 999. So this will become very handy if you wanted to actually change anything on the port end or any of the configurations, essentially on that end. Then the next step, as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and create 10 simulator devices. This will be very simple. So as you recall, once we've imported the modules, we'll have the ability to actually create a variable. That variable will actually create, we're going through the driver templates module, which we're grabbing the simulator underscore gen1. So this is very similar again to actually pulling the whole list and going through that and selecting the device that you want. Then what we're doing is we're actually defining those the variables that are required, such as name, the driver, and the simulator, the properties of that. Pardon me. And then we're actually creating the number of devices. So we're going to loop through this in a for loop down here, using the basically this number right here. And then we're defining basically a list right here that allows us to go through this and circle through this and create the devices that you want to. So I've saved this. I'm just going to go ahead and run this. I'm going to switch screens, and then you'll see that sim device _1, which is a naming convention that we have in our for loop, will actually be followed, and you'll see that 10 devices will appear pretty quickly right here. So I'm hoping that the ease of use and the speed to value can actually be demonstrated well here. We're trying to show you what the capabilities are. We are hoping that you guys will take this and run with this as well. So yeah, you can see that we've created the devices. One thing that I'll demonstrate, there's no tags obviously, but there's also no metadata in the devices as well. I'll grab a couple of them and show you, right? So no metadata. So that's the next step that I had in mind, that we can actually quickly show you here as well. Again, very simply, we actually have the ability to list the devices and then populate that with metadata. In this case, basically, we also have decided to print updating metadata of the device name to actually provide some feedback to the user as to what is happening. Right here, you can see that the metadata we're adding is completely static, right? We're doing a Seattle for the plant, and then the line that's bottling. So again, I'm going to go ahead and save this. We're going to run through that in a for loop, right? And basically run that all the way through. So you can see that we're actually getting updating metadata of device 2, and then sim device 8, 9. So you should actually, on the interface, you'll see this stopping and starting. And basically, all these will actually get updated as we're going through. So if you look at this, you can see that they're actually getting updated right here. As the next step, another use case that you may have is updating the metadata based off of a name or some sort of a variable that's within that name, right? So let me just quickly show you that all of them, like the last one actually got updated as well. So the next thing, as I mentioned, we're going to go through and use the name in our device to actually take that and put that into our metadata. So what we have here is essentially, we're importing the modules like before. So we're doing a for loop where we're actually telling it to print this, right? But we're actually splitting the name of every device, right? So we have the device.name. We're splitting that, and we're taking the first component of that, basically. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and put that into our metadata. So we're actually defining that as line and then the number here. So as I mentioned, if you look at this, you'll see that there is the line is currently set to bottling. But let's say you wanted to actually run this where you have the line as a metadata information in there. So you can see, so if you have this, we'll actually go into here. We should see something like, once it actually updates, we should see line 8 because it's device 8. There we go. And similar to before, what's going to happen is in the background, all these is, we're going to circle through all the devices, and all of them should have the right line number associated with them based off of the device name. Right here. All right. So the next thing I had in mind is now deleting the devices. So in this case, we've chosen to go through and delete the devices based off of the condition. The condition in this case is going to be any device that has an even name. This may or may not be a realistic use case for the real world, but the whole idea is that to understand that we can actually do this based off of a certain condition. So again, we're importing the modules right here, and we're running through a for loop, which we're actually taking the name, right? And then we're seeing if that number is actually divisible by 2. And once we've done that, we actually have the ability to delete these devices very simply within our loop. So, and as you know, we also have the feedback as always as well. So we can actually see this in our terminal that we actually will be able to, we are deleting some devices. So 2, 8, right? And we can see in the background that the devices that are even in number will actually get deleted. The other use case that may be a little bit more realistic is that you can actually have a specific metadata. So in this case, I'm going to give this the name obsolete. So if this device becomes obsolete and I tell add that metadata in here, right? So device 9, we did that for, and device 1 will do that for, as an example. We can actually take that and then run a script that allows us to delete these devices. So we're gonna now circle through. So we're making a call to read the data, but we are going to based off of that delete that information as well. So go ahead and do that. So again, we're reading through the information, and then if there is an obsolete in the device metadata, you can see that you will have the ability to then essentially delete those as well. So we did that for devices 1 and 9, I believe. And we should be able to see those as deleted shortly here as well. Did I not run my code? Or maybe I didn't update this. Yeah, so I'll just update this. Apologies. Add and update. All right, go back here. We can choose something else as well. Delete. Add and update. All right. Now I should be able to see these in here, and then we'll run this code again. There we go. The feedback, and then we can see that our device is just the other item is, we've been Device Hub focus at this point, but I do want to point out that there is, again, all the capabilities that you would have in Litmus as you would have through the SDK. Device Hub is just easier to demonstrate a little bit in a short period of time. But there's another thing that I wanted to quickly point out as well. So over here, we're importing the right modules that we want. I am disabling the warnings because this is a self-signed certificate for full disclaimer, right? So that's why we have some extra libraries in here. And then I like the pprint modules as well. So I've imported those as well here. But in this case, we have, again, other modules that we can utilize, such as the device management and under general right here. So what we have, I've commented out a bunch of these, but really we can go through and quickly look at what all there is, right? We have firmware information, MAC address, network information, modem information, and memory that we are going to see. And then the other information such as storage, serial, the SLCAN, I'm not sure what that is, but the CPU info and the inflex will actually have the ability to do a pulse check as well on those. So if I were to save this and run this code, I should be able to get some feedback in JSON format. So I'm just going to show you quickly what that looks like. I can make this full screen so it's a little bit easier for folks to see. But essentially what we have is our firmware version, our MAC addresses, like we talked about, modem addresses, network address, modem address, and then essentially the memory information at last. There is the ability to actually run essentially containers as well. So you have the ability to get behind the scenes of the basically the application right here, right? So the application module, as I showed before, there is no containers or images running here. But we have the code to actually be able to do that. So I'm going to do a simple docker run command, which is going to run Ubuntu, and I'm giving it some essentially environmental variables and making sure that it restarts always in the case of a Litmus Edge restart. And based off of that, we are actually going to run this image with this tag and give it the Ubuntu name, right? So if I were to do that, you'll be able to see I don't believe there's going to be any feedback on this end, but you'll be able to see the images. We should actually download this very quickly. It is a smaller image, right? And we should be able to see our Ubuntu environment is actually feeding back here. We can do things like, inspect that container if we wanted to, right? Just to give you some ideas. Look at the logs, that sort of stuff as well. Then we also have the ability to, and then basically stop and delete that container. So you can see that container is persistent. It's running currently. So I'll quickly snip the code for that. And this code basically, again, importing the right modules, and making sure that the self-signed certificate is not showing up in the messages. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the names of the containers because everything works with a UUID here. This makes sense to actually go through the names, grab those names, and then basically list all the containers in the manner that we want. And then we're actually going to take the container ID and find that and store that into a variable with the name that we're actually interested in. In this case, it's going to be Ubuntu, right? But this can be anything in theory. And then we're going to stop this. We're going to pause for 10 seconds. The pause was when I was actually running this test. I realized that you obviously can't delete a container while it's still running. So we're going to give it some time to actually essentially be do what it needs to do to actually stop in the background, and then we're going to delete that container. So as I mentioned, so let's go ahead and save, and we're going to run this code. So we should be able to see this stopping momentarily. We know there's a little bit of a delay. There you go. So at this point, we've actually seen that the container has been removed. And if you wanted to, you can obviously move messages around to give feedback to the user, like information like your container has, stopped now. We're gonna wait for 10 seconds, and then your container is removed now. So you could have two messages in there. And then the last example that I had here for today's discussion was actually going to be based off of a config file. We can actually run a number of basically parameters within the message. In this case, again, for the ease of demonstration, the device hub is actually an easy one to use, right? So in this case, you can see that we have simulator devices. So this will make it very easy to make sure you have governance across. I'm going to show you what the config file that we're actually using in our code right here looks like. So in this case, we have our config file referred to right here, right? So that config file is sitting in the same directory in this case. And I'm going to go through and show you that we have, so in this, we would have device 1, device 2, device 3, and all these devices will be defined on this end about what they are, how they were created, and like we had before. So with that foundational knowledge, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to go ahead and run that code. So we should see these devices get deleted. And we should actually see some new devices appear as well. So because those didn't actually fall under the category in our config file, you can see that you can actually govern all of the message with that. So again, you can actually do this for various different components, basically. So that concludes the demonstration. I think if there's any questions at this point, we want to make sure that we're actually addressing them as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Hussein. Yeah, Ricardo, go for it.
Here, Ricardo.
First of all, this is great. Okay, so this gives us exposing the APIs through an SDK. I don't know if everybody here on the call realizes what that gives us, right? So this gives us the power of automating the configuration, right? So I am creating thousands of tags right now on Litmus, right? And where I'm having to on 20 plus factories and adding metadata. And the way I'm doing this is I'm exporting to CSV, right? And parsing the, the tag into the metadata, just like you show it in there. So this is great, right? So now I'm able to use Python to do that. Now I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking to what's next for me. I would create, based on these APIs now, I would like to create some sort of a fast API or even my own MCP server to automate that, right? I don't know if you're going to cover that here, if it's a spoiler. So my question is towards the MCP server for Litmus, because you guys did that, about 4 months ago. I tried to play with it. So am I going to duplicate the efforts? And then, I spent 2 months doing this, and then you guys come up with all these APIs exposed via an MCP server. Can you share a little bit of the roadmap or?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about what I know, right? So the MCP server is using the SDK under the hood, essentially. That's as far as I know. It sounds like you've also played with the MCP server, correct?
That's right. Yeah. I played a bit with it, especially the high byte and other ones. The Litmus, I had a hard time. I could connect to it via the SSE, right, server sync events, but I couldn't access any of these tools, And to be honest, I just stopped right there. I know I could have reached out to people to help me, but that's where I stopped. So this is the missing piece, right?
Right.
Because I connected Claude to the Litmus MCP server. I just could not use any of the tools, right?
Yeah, so here's my understanding, right? So the MCP server is using the SDK under the hood, right?
Okay.
The long-term goal is going to be to have one-to-one coverage with that. I don't believe we're there yet, Ricardo. But I think that some of a portion of the functionalities are actually there. And then, we are still in the early stages of that, relatively speaking, right? So,
Right.
yeah. I appreciate that question. I think that's you kind of are seeing the vision the way we're actually going, right?
Awesome. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
had
thank
to
you.
speak up because this is great. Great presentation. I am very happy to see this. So
Awesome.
again, hopefully everybody realizes how powerful that is. Right now we have access to automate the configuration of it and just do whatever work you're gonna do 10 times faster, 20 times faster, So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ricardo. I think we actually have talked about having a future office hour session that dive a little deeper into the MCP server. So I'm going to take that as a vote for show me more. We'll put that on our office hours roadmap. All right. Any other questions from the crew? While I'm waiting for a hand raise or something in the chat, Hussein, something that I was thinking about was, you were showing a lot of device configuration at scale. Is there a way that you can do like a dry run for this? You want to validate the device configuration before it goes live? Is there a way that you can do that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And this goes back to a lot of times like we'll go to best practices, right? Where we do have a prod and a dev environment, right? Which I'm sure most of our partners are actually aware of. But you will be able to run the same code in a in a dev environment. So when you do want to cookie cutter it and push it back to your prod environment, you actually have the ability to do that. That way, you're making sure that if there is something that could potentially go wrong, you're actually catching it earlier on.
Okay, cool. Are you able to simulate, like do like like simulating the devices or sites before you do rollout, like a big rollout, or?
Reese, I do see your hand is up, so I want to give you maybe, I think.
Yeah, I can speak on this. So, hi everyone, I'm Reese. I'm one of the developers of the SDK. So if you have any complaints, you can throw that ire towards me. So for device validation, for Device Hub, we actually do validation locally. So when you saw Hussein was declaring the device before creating it, in that class actually runs a validation against the configuration. So if you give it invalid properties, you can call a function call that's completely air-gapped. You don't need network access. You don't need access to a Litmus Edge device. And you can call validate device, and it will tell you all of the configuration issues with the device. So there is some degree, it's not perfect, but there's some degree to which you can do local validation of your device configuration completely air-gapped, completely without any network access at all, just locally on your machine when you first instantiate it.
Okay, but let's say I went and did this live and I botched it, and especially if it was Ken, I probably botched it. Is there some kind of rollback strategy that we can use if it goes sideways?
Yeah, so this is sort of the API calls themselves, or the SDK functions themselves don't have built-in rollback, but we would encourage users, like the last use case that Hussein showed, where you have this config file, and then you compare against that and you make function calls based on that, is you can script up your own like rollback functionality, right? So the power of the SDK is also the downside, which is like if you wanted to with a single Python call, you could delete everything. And so when talking to a real production instance, you want to build a little bit more scaffolding where it's actually quite trivial to do. It's quite easy to do that rollback, but you do need to build that out. You should be cautious when running against a real production instance.
All right, so this is for super users. We give you the power.
And to
Exactly.
yeah, and that's a very good point too, Reese. The one other thing I'll add to, right, you have the ability to automate backups from your system through Litmus Edge Manager, right? You can do that through APIs. And Reese, correct me if I'm wrong, but I am fairly sure I saw that on the SDK side as well, where you can actually switch the intervals. I don't know if you can actually do the backup directly from the SDK, but I think those are kind of the tools that I would add, or the parts that I would add in your process rather, specifically for this case, right?
Yeah, so you should be able to automatically download and apply template and backup files, if I'm not mistaken. That might not be added presently, I have to check, but that will be definitely added in the future. So the current development build definitely has that feature, but I'm not 100% sure about the current release build. But I believe it has something like that, yeah.
Cool. Is there a way for us to like after you do a deploy, is there a way for us to confirm expected outcomes, like that like confirm data quality, things like that after you deploy?
That would be so anything you can do via the UI, you can do with the SDK. So if you create a device and you want to then have a validation step, there are function calls there to get the device, to get the data from the tags, to check if the device is started or stopped, to check its connection status. So you can write that validation layer. Once you create a device, is it connected properly? Once you create a container, is it running? You can do that sort of stuff.
Cool. That's super cool. Hey, Ricardo, did you have another question? I saw your hand go up briefly.
No, he covered that. So I was
okay.
gonna talk about, it was kind of like a start transaction and rollback from SQL, and he covered that you can possibly automate the backup and then restore the backup, right? So for us that we think like a step ahead, I'm thinking, okay, so I can start like a start transaction by using the API to do a backup, right? And then you do whatever change you do, and then there's a DEFCON 4, you need to roll back, you just restore that configuration file, so
Gotcha.
which
Okay.
I wanna call the instruction start transaction for the backup and rollback for the restore, just
Right,
for
right,
fun.
right. But that'll never happen to you, Ricardo. I know that. You'll never have to do a rollback.
Every day.
Marcos, you had a question?
Hello, I'm Marcos. I'm from Indom Consulting. I develop a use case for using Litmus Edge for a customer in Canada in the metal industry, and I love the to have the possibility of having an SDK and a library, Python library, where I can manage my my devices and all my connections and everything that I will need to develop in a use case of using Litmus Edge. But I want to know if in the future it will be possible to manage UNS or Linux Edge Manager, because normally in in the development of a use case, the scope is further for only Linux Edge. And the client will need at least a UNS space to manage, and I would love to know if it will be possible to develop it using this kind of library, a UNS.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Marcos. And I do believe the LEM and Litmus UNS are both on the roadmap to come down the pipeline as well for the SDK. I believe that because bulk of everybody that uses Litmus will use Litmus. A Litmus product will be using Litmus Edge. That's where the development start. Since we're getting positive feedback, we're going to keep going, and we're going to do LEM and Litmus UNS as well.
Thank
Good
you
question.
very much for answering the question.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, Hossein, this was fantastic. Really appreciate you spending the time to share what you know about the SDK with us. And we'll have future sessions probably in 2026 about the SDK as we have updates to that tool set. So at this point, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You are going to be getting a couple of emails after this session ends. One is going to be an automated email that comes from Teams, and that's going to have a recording to today's session, and you'll be able to play this back whenever you want to see it. There's just another email that's going to come, which will have, I think we're going to provide your FigJam link, Hossein, and any other links and resources like where to find the SDK documentation, things like that. There's also going to be a survey there. And I just have a couple of questions for you to give us feedback. We'd especially love to know if there are any topics that you all are interested in for the next time that we, time or time after that we get together. That'd be really helpful for us. And speaking of the next time, our next office hours will happen on October 28th. So it's the same time of day, same day of the week, and we'll be sending you an email to remind you. And until then, I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks so much for coming. Take care.
Thank you all.